G'day there folks, I'm Beanie and welcome to Beanie Draws. Now in this part of the video, if this video is indeed a whole different part, I'm now going to be taking this Indominus Rex versus Ankylosaurus and I'm going to slowly and carefully go about inking it. I will be using this particular pen to start off with. As you can see, it's called a Staedtler Pigment Liner, 0.05mm. Should be able to find this at your art store. It'll be at good art stores and possibly at your stationery or newsagent store. So try them out. I think it goes for about $5, something like that, possibly $3. I can't fully remember, but it's a 0.05 millimeter nib, which is good. It's a little bit smaller than a 1mm, which is your usual smallest pen. So just briefly before I get into this, as you'll see with these guys, the Artline drawing system, generally speaking, 0.1 is the smallest size nib that you'll get in your pens. And that is when you come to your standalone pens, where you got the 0.05, which is half the thickness of the 0.1. For this which is what I need it for, to get those good details. So if you want to get even smaller than that, then you can get to like that. See how that one says 0.03? That is even tinier, so tiny that you usually can't see the nib. I won't be using that because that is incredibly slow to draw with. I don't want the 0.1 because the 0.1 is too thick for what I want to do for bit by bit detail. So I'm going to go on with the 0.05 and see how we're going. Hopefully I don't mess this up. Now normally what I do is I would normally erase the whole image with my kneadable eraser. But this time, I am going to try and be risky and just go straight for the lines. I'm going to be building this up slowly. This will mostly be time-lapsed. I apologize. I know there's a lot of you out there who really don't like time-lapse. You want to see bits and pieces as it goes along, but like I've done with my other drawings in the past, if there's anything if there's any information that I think will be worthwhile learning from, I will then stop. But for the most part, like for example, tracing over most of these lines, you're not going to learn much. We all know how to trace, so I'm just going to go over most of these lines to start off with, and take it from there. I was actually just thinking now that I've got the felt tip pens out, I will probably actually, oh, and also my hand will be going everywhere when drawing this. Because we have lead on the page, it will smear otherwise. So what I usually do, so I just grab myself an envelope, because I leave them laying around all over the place. I use that to rest my hand on so I don't smudge all the pencil marks. And I was also thinking that I really should take this opportunity to finish off my Velociraptor drawing. I'll probably do that once I've got to the point of finishing this drawing. Usually, I'll usually draw for about, I don't know, an hour or two, and then I'll need a break. So I like to mix things up a bit. I don't like to be drawing anything for longer than really an hour or two. 2 hours is about as long as I want to be spending on any particular drawing, so I tend to keep it to 1 hour. And of course, this won't be an hour, this will be quite time-lapsed. So again, I apologize, but we know how to trace line work. If there's anything of importance, I will pause every now and then, but basically you can kind of see what I'm doing. It's mainly line work, and like around here I'll add details occasionally, but there's not much I can really teach you that I haven't already taught you in previous videos, but I'll see if I can do something a bit more interesting later on. I might actually, every now and then, when drawing, I might do something like this. I don't even know if you can see what I did there. Maybe I'll bring the camera in down. So I don't know if you can see what I did there. I might do another little example quickly around here. See, sometimes around here, I'll find areas where I'll want to do a darker rendering straight away. So I will line in those shapes where I think shadow will run, and then I will color in the black parts. And unfortunately, around here, my camera is so close to the page that the end of my pen is actually knocking the camera cable. So if it gets a bit wonky every now and again, that's why. So I guess here I'm really just like teaching you about the Indominus Rex a little bit. Something to cover your pencil work so that you don't mess things up. Around here, I'm drawing in some kind of, every now and then I'll refine more bits and pieces. So around here, I'm adding a bit of, well, I suppose around here I could add like lines for the rendering right away. See where we go, but generally at the moment, right, what I'm doing is adding little extra details like muscle lines and bits and pieces like that. So I didn't when I was doing my Indominus Rex versus T-Rex video, that was basically all time-lapsed, and just because I wanted to draw for the sake of drawing, I wasn't teaching anything in that one, I just wanted to try and draw it, because I didn't feel comfortable in teaching that one at that time. I will probably do that again, but basically now what I'm doing is I'm trying to explain what I was doing back in those videos. So like here I'm just doing a bit of a thicker line every now and then. Sometimes I'll do thinner lines. I am by no means brilliant at inking. There are far better illustrators out there who work with pen a lot better than I do. I mean, I'm okay, but in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I don't think I'm as good of an inker for like, graphic novel illustration style things, which is what I'm trying to do with this one. I'm not as good with ink and pen as like, dedicated comic book illustrators. I generally prefer using ballpoint pen, as you'll have noticed by a lot of my videos. I generally prefer using pencils for the most part, but every now and then, for something like this, I'll try and see if I can use a felt tip marker. And also, I know someone was saying that my hands were too close to the like you weren't able to see the what I was doing. Unfortunately, with the way with these pens, I don't feel comfortable holding the pencil like this. This would be the easiest way for you to see what I'm doing right now, but unfortunately I just can't draw it like that. My hand will be covering quite a bit of this, unfortunately, but there's not a huge amount I can really do about that because my hand feels more comfortable at this end of the pen, which I know is kind of blocking the view a little bit. When drawing around. Also, another thing that I'm going to point out, which I do say a lot when I'm interrupting my time-lapse bits, is that I don't know if you can see it, but I add little lines here and there for like, around here is the hand, which is folding, so I put little wrinkle lines to where I think the folds would go, just to make it look more organic and natural. So around here, I do like, lines like that, just to give a little bit of an indication of organic fold lines. I'm seriously thinking down the track that I want to do something like this on a day when I'm not too busy. For me, it'll be nighttime, so for you guys, it'll be during the day, probably. But I want to do a sort of a live stream of me drawing. I have no idea how I'm going to be able to do that, because I am technologically inept, or whatever that word is. But I reckon now, because when I first tried it, I only had like, I think, 20 subscribers, and now they've got 2,500 subscribers and growing. I think that's enough now to be able to like start a sort of a live stream at some point of me just drawing and Okay, now for the challenging part. Drawing Dumbness Rex's mouth, and in general, just drawing Indominus Rex, and not messing up with my pen. Because I mean, I know that I get a lot of you saying that that I'm a brilliant drawer, which I'll take the compliment. I do find myself to be quite competent at drawing. I wouldn't have started this channel if I didn't. But even I get intimidated by different things, and these marker pens are one of those things that I get intimidated by. Also, because like you probably can tell, like, see my hand? It's quite shaky. That's why I can't be a tattoo artist. So I do find drawing with marker pens are fairly unforgiving when it comes to shaky hands. So that is why I find them intimidating, but just I guess work with it, I guess. And when you want to draw your lines thinner, it's easier with these areas than it is for like around here. But you just keep the pressure of your nib on the page light. See, like around here, I'm doing it fairly heavy, but around there, I was doing it, very light, barely touching the page. So when I'm doing things like around here, that area I don't draw, and I just, as you can see, I'm just tracing my lines. That's basically all I'm doing around here. Sometimes I'll do a crosshatch, but really I'm just tracing my lines. So oh, okay, around here I'm doing some crosshatching shading. But for the most part, I am just tracing my lines. Now I'm just drawing some lines up along the lip to give a bit of a texture. I mean, you guys have seen me doing this before in my other videos. If you're a regular viewer, that is. If you're not a regular viewer, well, that's how I do some of my lip marks. Just now drawing the Indominus Rex's eye. Now, before I continue on too much, I've got the basic tracing of Indominus Rex done. I will fix up these quills along its arms. Now, I will be putting a lot more detail in him later. Her, I should say. But for now, I was thinking about this image a little while ago, and I didn't like the placement of some of the feet, so I'm just going to quickly fix some of the feet up and see if I can get the perspective looking a little bit better. So around there, I think its foot needs to come down a bit more. So I'm just drawing in its toes. I use these opportunities to tidy up the lines because I mean once you've drawn it in ink, that's pretty much it. You can't do anything else with it. I think this leg needs to be down a little bit more, otherwise it looks like it's floating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it. For the most part, I'm not going to erase it too heavily, so you can still see the lines there. Just so I've got enough line marks to work with and reposition the leg. So I think having the leg, well, the foot positioned further down will make it look a little bit better. Like it'll make it look like it's on the same perspective plane as the Indominus Rex. Hopefully. Because that's what was bugging me with this image before. I just thought the perspective was a little bit off. And I might just fix up this leg and bring it up a bit. Or maybe I'll have the leg like it's kind of like floating off the ground. But either way, I wanted it to be all on the same kind of playing field for the most part. I do believe that is how I can fix this image and make it look a little bit better. Because I am a perfectionist, I'm pretty anal with my perfectionisms. That was brilliant grammar, wasn't it? So now I can erase that line a bit more. I'll give a bit of shadow under there. So it looks like it's lifting its foot. Give a bit of shading to give me an idea of where I'm going to put my shadows and that. And now, actually, I still don't like the positioning of the leg. Or it's more the foot this time now. So I'm going to change the foot a little bit so it looks more like it's being lifted up off the ground. Kind of like, you know, when you like see you know, a bull and it's like it's digging its foot in, it does its little swipe before it goes for its, you know, charging. I'm thinking kind of going more like that style now. Again, it's good to get this out of the way first before you put down your ink, because once you've inked it, you can't change it. I mean, you can if you use white ink or white paint or whatever, but really it's better to get your line work done with an erasable medium before you put down your final permanent ink marks. Like, so around here that will be fine, but around here, if you don't like the placement of your feet, get that sorted out before you put your final marks in. So now I'll put the shadow here. That should be better. I think I'm just going to evaluate it, and yeah, I like it. I think that foot placement's better, that foot placement's better, that foot placement's better. So I think it's right to go now. I think we're okay to get into it with the marker pencil. Well, marker pen, I should say. So again, a lot of this is just going to be tracing. Not a huge amount to learn right now. So if you don't want it to be time-lapsed, I'm sorry, but it's just tracing. I'll try and keep my time-lapse durations a little bit slower. Just going to do some rendering on the beak using light lines, but really, I'm trying to I'm going to try and get as much detail in and then erase a bit so then you can actually get a better idea. No, because I find it, like, around here, it looks good with the rendering, but I guarantee once I erase the pencil, it won't look quite as good. So I'm just going to try and think up in my head how I'm going to tackle this situation. Drawing in wrinkle lines for the knee. So when it gets down to detailing and texturing, basically you want to think about your wrinkle lines, because your wrinkles will add realism and life to your dinosaurs, and anything for that matter, really. Going to add some lines here, cross-hatching style. But around the back is when you can pull out your 0.1 millimeter and 0.2 millimeters to bring some extra line thickness to work with. So yeah, I'm actually going to bring out the 0.2 millimeter actually, just to make these lines a little bit darker. So you can see, hopefully you can see there that that these lines come out darker than some of the other lines I was working with. I'm also going to add in some darker lines around here just to give the armor that sort of three-dimensional plated look. And I will be putting shadows, like might put a little bit of a shadow under the spikes. I draw in the shape of the shadow and then I color in that shape. And that gives you a bit more of a shadow look. I also want to get some of these some of the shading in this spike. And why is the ink not transferring? That's really annoying. Don't know what the lifespan of ink is in a pen, to be honest, so I'm just going to use darker lines to get some shading in my spikes. I might bring it in closer so you can see better. So like around here, I'll use this as a good example. I won't time lapse all this part, just so you can kind of get an idea for like how I go about rendering. So like around these kind of spikes, like around here, I draw in the shape of my shadow sometimes, or sometimes I just make the lines thicker using a thicker pen. So what I usually like doing is, as you can see, I started off with a 0.05, then I built it up to like thicker lines to where, you know, some lines I will want to keep thin, some of the lines I will want to build up and make thicker. I use these kind of lines, so like I'll try and do that slower. So I go like joot, 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 joot. So just, you know, lines right next to each other. That's the basis of all rendering. Sometimes I'll do the lines around like here. See, okay, around that area, I want the lines to be thinner for textures, for like scaled scaled rockish armored kind of texture. So I'll use a lighter pen for that. As you can see with the thickness of my line, that is thinner than that line. And then for say around here, I want to bring out some shadow, so I'll use a 0.3 line. So you bring out a thicker line to get more darkness, and if you want to get a thinner line or a lighter line, you use a thinner line. I think that makes sense. Hopefully that does make sense. So I'm going to draw in a shadow there. So I draw the outline, and then I just color in that outline for how I think the shading should look under the spike. So I think that looks good, and then I'll do like a shading around here. I'll add in a line for the shading as I just mentioned, and I'll just color it in, because that spike is appearing over the top of this other spike. So I'll do the same around here. That spike appears in front of the other spike, so just kind of give a bit of a shadow. It casts a little bit of a shadow over the other spike. So hopefully I don't have to explain every single part of what I'm doing. Hopefully explaining things like, what I'm doing right here, building up a shadow on one of the spikes, or say two of the spikes, and then I'll just continue it along the same thing, like applying that theory to this theory, and you just watch as I go about it, and you explain one of them, and then you just do the rest of them. Like I'm working on a Velociraptor running pack. I drew one of the Velociraptors to explain how to draw the comic style, and then I just time-lapsed the rest, because I assume that when you kind of get the idea of how to draw one of them, you apply that theory to anything that's repeatable. Scales, spikes, teeth, you name it, like shadows. You've seen how I draw one shadow, and then you just apply that theory to the other shadows. I suppose I should also mention around here, the line direction is different. These lines are going up, these lines are going that way. You want to try and imagine your spikes and just forms in general as a three-dimensional shape, and then you make the direction of your lines go with what you think the surface of that shape would be. So if it's flat going that way, you draw it that way. If you think there's a bump here, which I think there's a bump here, you draw those lines to indicate that bump. Like say around here, just draw them very slightly. Hopefully that explains some things, and it's not just me rushing through it all. Unfortunately, that does make these time lapses. It does make these videos a lot longer, but I'm gauging by the analytics of my videos now to see how you guys react to certain lengths of videos. Like, what's a good sweet spot? Because initially I thought 3 to 5 minutes was a good length of video, but it seems people enjoy watching me draw slower, and they want to learn what I'm drawing as opposed to just watching what I'm drawing. So now most of my videos are actually long versions now. They started off short and now they're long, and actually the short time-lapse drawings that I started when I first started this channel, before I even intended on doing tutorials, people are now asking me to do those drawings again, but as tutorials. So that's giving me an idea on what you guys want. So thank you for that. It's awesome. If I had have known that when I started off the channel, I would have done things a little bit differently, but you don't know these things until you try it and you find out. I can't fully remember what I did for the video of teaching how to draw Ankylosaurus, but I'm hoping I actually taught you guys something worth learning, because I'm kind of liking how this rendering stage is going now. I know I said earlier in this video that felt tip pens make me they intimidate me, but I suppose once you get into this flow of things, you get into your zen, then everything just kind of comes naturally. It's like riding a bike, learning how to drive a car, learning to speak a language. It just is all about practicing and patience. The longer you spend doing something, the less you'll try to do it, and the more it just kind of just flows out of you. Around here, I'm also doing building up these lines to it's kind of in focus. I'm building up the lines around the edges now, using even heavier, darker lines, which hopefully give the impression of an edge. I'm also thinking I'm gonna have to rush out. I do have another tutorial that I've got uploaded, but I wasn't fully happy with it. But I may have to use that as my tutorial, because this is not going to be out by tomorrow. I know that for sure. Oh, sorry. See here, I'm drawing the shading and shadow of under the spike of its jaw, and then I'm gonna work on under the cheek. Put a few wrinkles there. I'm gonna put in some shading here. So just I'm holding the pen lightly over the paper, and then just like letting my experience dictate on how much pressure I should add. That's the other thing that I find a little bit difficult when explaining these tutorials, is because I'm trying to imagine what it's like for a person who hasn't drawn much. I have all these years of experience of drawing, so that's why I just smash through it, because I've been drawing for years and I'm very comfortable with it for the most part. Sometimes I'll mess up, but sorry. But yeah, like around there, see, like that was unconscious. Things like this is an unconscious movement of the hand, which just comes naturally to me, and I have to remind myself that things like that, like, it just comes out of my head through years of experience and practicing. But stuff like that is probably what you guys want to learn. So like I'm just adding little tiny lines here and there just to give you a bit of to give the Ankylosaurus back a bit of a harder textured look. I'm also making sure that I render only one side of the these spikes. See how you got one side, one side, one side. All the left sides basically are left non-marked. You leave the paper visible, and the other side you add your darkness, and that gives you your three-dimensionalisms. I'm sure that's not the right word, but I'm going with it. Oh yes, this is going to be a long video. Oh, they always are now. I'm actually far more confident in drawing Ankylosaurus and rendering Ankylosaurus than I am rendering Indominus Rex. Also, around the tail, around here, this will be another good way of explaining how I go about rendering. Like, as you can see, I'm building up little bits of line here and there to build up the texture and the shading. But unlike how I did with the Indominus Rex, where I tried to do most of the outline first before I go into any more detail, around here I feel more comfortable, so I am actually just rendering and lining in bits and pieces. Like, I'm not lining out the whole. I didn't outline the whole club right away. I'm doing bits and pieces and building up the picture as I go along. I think I mentioned something about sculpture in this video, of the previous version of this video, but yeah, you basically carve your picture in. You add your lines here and there. You add parts. And because this isn't pencil, I can't actually take away anymore now. I'm adding my lines to make them darker. There, I was going really fast. Around here, it might actually be better to use because right there I was using 0.3. It's probably better to use a 0.05 to get the rendering lines around here. Now I'm doing cross hatching. Line, 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 line. That gives you your shading. And as you can tell the difference between that line, which you can barely even see. I don't know if you can see it. There we go, a bit sharper. As you can see, with these lines, much thinner than those lines. That's the importance of using multi-thickness lines when rendering. It gives you more control. So now I can make. I wanted that area to be dark. I want these areas to be dark, but I don't want the whole thing to be that dark. I want to bring that lightness out. So I'm using a much thinner pen to bring those lines out. If that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about here. If I noticed that with one of my other videos that I was talking about, like, I wasn't expecting people to be, watching the whole thing. So I said, if you guys have watched it to this point, say, yes, I've watched it to this point. And quite a lot of you actually did say that, so that's freaking awesome. So, I'm going to have a new one for this video. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase a bit of that. Okay, I'm using a 0.3, which is a thick line. I'm going to add in my dark bits, my darker lined shadows. As you can see, the line, 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 line. Building up the darknesses. And now I want to make the shading further down look lighter. Kind of how, like, with a pencil has light there. You can't do that with these pens, because the moment the actual tip of the pen touches the paper, it's left its ink. Pencil is all about pressure, not the same with ink. So now what I'm using is a much finer line, and now I'm using lighter pressure and just adding in extra lines. You bring them, you narrow them in like this. You make your lines thinner at the, like, longer, medium, narrow at the end, and you use those thinner lines to differentiate, I think that's the right word, between the dark, heavy rendering and the light side of it. And now, because I wasn't sure whether that made sense, Now, I'm going to ask all of you who are watching to this point right now, if that made sense to you, and I hopefully it did. If I did teach that concept and theory of line thicknesses and heavinesses to get your shading, say yes, Beanie. I understand the concept of line thicknesses for rendering. If you say that, and I read that in the comments, that will be freaking awesome, because, I know that you guys are learning a lot in these videos now, which is, it's a very, 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 very fulfilling feeling. So yeah, like, to know that, like, some of my concepts are coming across, because, the way that I explain them, I'm not always sure that they, make sense. So if you guys tell me that, yes, Beanie, it makes sense, I understand what you're talking about, it lets me know that I'm going the right way. So as you can see here, I'm using the darker ink to build up that side. And I want to use a lighter line for the mid section around here, so I'll use a lighter line. Oh, you can't really see that. Lighter line, that's, so there you go, lighter lines, and that gives you a mid section level rendering. So hopefully that makes sense. You know what to say if it does. And now I'm going to take a break.